What's up guys, Bionic here and welcome to today's Raid Shadow Legends video where it is going to be a top list of useful rares for the end game. We have a lot of content that now requires more and more rares. The tag team arena is coming, right? So you may not have enough legendaries or top tier epics. You may want to focus on rares instead. Those books to increase their skills are easier to get, which makes a lot of sense. We also now have the all rares tournaments. So I was going through my list, my tier list, and I noticed a lot of the rares in here. Some of the top ones I think are underrated. They are useful all the way up into the end game. So this video will go through all of them and I want to know what you guys think, okay? Did I miss some important ones? Do you agree with most of these? Have you been using some of these, right? Everybody's path is different into the end game. You may have to use some rares, you may not, but I know I did way back when I started over a year ago. So I want to know in 2020, which rares are you guys currently using for the end game? So anyway, let's get going because we have a lot of champions to cover. Let's start with the obvious ones, the Void champions with, of course, the Cold Heart, her bread and butter being her A3, which is enemy max HP single target hit with a 100% turn meter decrease, right? You can definitely fit her basically everywhere, all the way up into the end game dungeons. The next one we're going to talk about is one of our other favorites, the Bellower. This guy has a ton of debuffs, 3 AoEs, right? But what we really like about him in a stun set, he kind of really shines as a good crowd control champion for the end game dungeons. I know I'm still using him, so a really good champion to have. The next one I'm also really using lately is the Renegade for this reduction of all ally skills by 2 turns, which can be reduced to a 5-turn cooldown. She does take damage when she does it, but it still serves the purpose well of trying to increase your speed runs in the dungeons. The next one is one champion that got unfortunately nerfed. When she was released, she was really strong, but she's still used quite a lot, especially in the unkillable teams for the even Ultra Nightmare clan boss, and that is Painkeeper, right? So it's the same thing as Renegade. We want this skill right here for the reduction of ally skills. Unfortunately, this one is only 1 turn, but using multiple Painkeepers can allow you to build a successful unkillable team. The next one is another recent favorite. It's the Reliquary Tender. I personally did not use her a lot, but recently I built mine all the way up to level 50. She is useful in faction wars, but she has a great kit overall, including a revive, right? That's always very good early on. Then she has a remove all debuffs, really strong, as well as her decrease attack A1. The next champion we haven't heard much about, but it still remains, I think, very useful in some content. It is, of course, he's not in this one, he's in the Demon Spawns. It is our Fellhound. I never pulled one, but this guy can be an excellent farmer. He has an AoE on his A1, also making him a good candidate for the stun set. He also has the reflect damage and continuous heal buff, which is very useful against the Fire Knight. That's right, because reflect damage counts as a hit. Next champion we're going to talk about is another one of our favorites who was used quite a lot, I think, last year, but recently not as much, and this guy is the Seducer. He has a fantastic kit all around, including a sleep on his A1, an AoE decrease attack, which is always very useful, but more importantly, an increased defense and block debuffs on all allies for 2 turns. Okay, so this guy can really shine in the dungeons. He has also a great aura, which is an HP aura. The next one, also in the undead, is Doomscreech. Don't forget about this guy. He has a 30% turn meter increase, as well as a 60% increased defense buff on all allies. This is like a cheaper version of Seeker. Instead of having the increased attack, it's the increased defense, all right? Also has a decreased accuracy, but not that useful on the A1, and then an AoE on his A3. And then we have one last champion in the Voids, which is going to be the Veteran. This guy was used a lot last year, being a defense Void champion with a decreased attack 50% on his A1. Also has a good aura for the dungeons, as well as an AoE block buffs, which can be very handy in those dungeons. All right, so now let's move on to the magic champions, which there is a lot of. All right, let's start with the obvious one, Apothecary, right? Increase speed, turn meter increase, as well as a single target heal, a triple hit A1, and of course a 21% defense increase aura in the dungeons specifically. Then let's talk about another recent favorite. It is Frozen Banshee, one of the best poisoners in the game. That is typically what she is used for. Really good against the clan boss, but also really good probably in the Dragon's dungeon, even perhaps the Ice Golem dungeon, because we know that poisons are really useful over there. She also has the poison sensitivity, which is one of the newer debuffs in the game. Then let's talk about the starter champions, right? I think Kale is probably still the best one because he has a lot of poisons. They all have the same aura. Also has, I think, a bigger multiplier on his A2 for the AoE. The next one is probably Ethel, right? I think a lot of people maybe still use her or have used her in the beginning. I know I did because of her triple hit A1, which is really good against the Fire Knight. Also has the Weaken, which is perhaps a little bit harder to get in the beginning until you get your Rosin. The next one, Elaine, I think is probably the only other worthy starter champion. Guys, she can be really good in a stun set, even perhaps against the faction wars, because she has an AoE right here and then a second AoE and an extra hit on her A1 if it is critical. The next one I want to talk about is a champion probably you have not heard a lot of. It's a support champion, but she has a decreased defense on her A1. She also has a decreased accuracy AoE, and then she has this block debuffs and 60% increased defense on all allies for 2 turns, which can be reduced to a 3-turn cooldown. Guys, this is really, really good. This champion early on, I never really used her, but if you're looking for the block debuffs and 60% increased defense, which is very rare on a rare champion, definitely use this champion right here. Let's continue on with the magic. The next one is going to be Runic Warder. This guy has the decreased attack AoE, okay? Sorry, not AoE, but single target. But early on, if you're missing this debuff, you want to try him out against a clan boss, really decent, all right? Also has a double hit A1, but we typically like him for this here, which is the same as the Fellhound that we just covered, reflect damage and continuous heal, which makes him really good against the Fire Knight. I use him to complete my level 20 missions, and now I am using him against the faction wars. The next one, guys, you might not have heard of that much as well, is the Judge. This guy has an interesting passive, all right? With each hit has a 30% chance of placing either 50% decreased accuracy, speed, attack, or decreased defense, okay? This guy can be useful all the way up into level 20 dungeons. If you do not have any other options, you may want to consider this champion. Also has an AoE which increases his turn meter, and this A1 basically stacks damage. It gets, I think, stronger as there is more debuffs. Alright, next one we're going to talk about is another recent champion. If you want a better decreased attack A1 champion, it is the Coffin Smasher. Triple hit A1 with the 50% decreased attack, really, really good, as well as an HP burn and this passive right here, which reduces damage of AoE attacks by 5%. The next one is the combo to the, not in here, sorry, but the combo to the Frozen Banshee, her partner Gravechill Killer. Okay, if built both together, they actually work well, but I think Gravechill Killer on its own is not that great. She's also a poisoner, but she also has the decreased defense. So if you don't have that option and you're working the Frozen Banshee, it might be good to work with this champion, all right? The reason why she works with her is because she needs the poison sensitivity debuff in order to have a 5% poison. Next one, let's talk about Myrmidon. This guy, Bannerlords right here, also a decent support champion, has a good aura for the dungeons, which is defense, but has the 50% ally protection as well as 15% continuous heal on all allies, and then has a AoE decrease attack, alright? So that's always useful in any dungeons. Also has a provoke on his A1, so could be a good option for you guys. Another one you guys might not have heard of that much, but she has been used and perhaps continues to be used, is Banshee, because she She has 2 AoEs, also really good in a stun set. She can actually be a decent farmer for your campaign brutal farmer as well, all right? Block cooldown skills, that's always a good form of CC. All right, now let's move on to the Force champions, starting with the obvious champion of the Bikini Award in 2019. It is War Maiden. Now, she has the AoE decreased defense 60% on a 100% chance, okay? So she's accessible, number 1, and then she remains useful all the way into the end game. I am still using mine, to be honest. All right, so let's move on to the next one. In the Lizardman faction, we've got the Bogwalker, another decreased attack A1 champion. So if you do not have any other options early on, and you get this guy, definitely useful all the way into almost the end game, right? Eventually you'll replace him perhaps for a better champion, but still very good. And if you did build him, then he's going to be very useful in your faction wars, okay? As well, he has a increased defense. It's only 30%, but it's still pretty decent on all allies, and has a 30% reflect damage on all allies for 1 turn when attacked with a critical hit. Might be useful for you guys against the Fire Knight. Next one we're going to talk about is, I believe now it is a Spirit Champion, and this is in the Skinwalker's Gnarlhorn. So this guy is interesting because he's kind of like a tank. He can be used against the spiders, also probably good in the faction wars, but he goes unkillable for 2 turns on a 3-turn cooldown. He has a provoke on all enemies. This is a place, it's not a hit, which means as long as you have the accuracy, it's going to work, as well as a 30% increased defense on himself, sorry. And that's pretty much what we're using him for, as well as the 27% defense increase aura for dungeon. So really strong champion. The next champion in the Spirit Affinity we are going to talk about is another recent or more recent champion, Soulbound Boyer. So this champion has an interesting skill where it is a fully deplete the turn meter of an enemy, okay? On a 4-turn cooldown, really good against the Spider Dungeon, perhaps even good against the Ice Golem Dungeon to some degree. But what she has also is a strong hitting A2, and her A1 is an AoE. So she can kind of be like a pseudo tank where you would build her to take the hits from the Spiderlings and then have her in a lifesteal set type of setup, and this actually works. It's been proven before. All right, let's move on to another champion that I think is great, also in the Barbarians. It's Berserker. Again, because this guy is accessible, he actually hits really hard, okay? Mine is still built. I use him in the faction wars and might be useful in the upcoming tag arena. This guy is a nuker, all right? A really good one, to be more precise. Also has an extra turn if he kills a target, and then has this skill right here, which increases his turn meter by 30% if this attack is critical. So a well-built Berserker is actually really strong, even in 2020. Next, we're going to talk about in the Dark Elves, another champion accessible very early on. It's Spirit Host. Why? Because she has the 50% increased attack buff on all allies on a 3-turn cooldown, which is hard to get in the beginning, okay? She also has a remove all debuffs and block debuffs on all allies for 1 turn, as well as a decent speed aura, I guess, when you're starting out. So she was a part of my beginner arena build, but she can still be very useful, guys, all the way into the end game. The last champion, guys, we're going to talk about today is another one you might not have heard that much of. It is Mother Superior, okay? So she has a decreased attack on her A1, and she has a heal as well as a shield buff, and finally she has a continuous heal and a shield buff on the target, which is very interesting because she's a good support champion because she's a healer, and healers early on are hard to get until you get the better version, let's say like an apothecary. She might work for you guys. She also has a decent speed aura, but like Spirit Host, not exactly the best. All right, so guys, that is going to be it. Or is it? Let me check my notes real quick. No, there is one more I forgot. He is a Force champion. I do want to talk about this guy, Grinner. This guy has the revive. So early on, if you do not have any other revive champions, this guy has it. It's a long cooldown, but still sometimes a revive is really important. He also has a decent aura for faction crypts, and I believe he has the chance of removing buffs on each target, so somewhat of a CC champion as well. Okay, so guys, that is going to be it. I think almost 30 rare champions that continue to be probably really useful all the way into the end game. And like I said, I mean, I still use some of mine, right? It's not because you have a ton of legendaries, maybe not a ton, but you know, a couple of legendaries, couple of good epics, that you do not need some of these rare champions, right? Like some of them are not fully built, but I still have them on the back burner because I may build them entirely in order to finish the faction wars, or come up with better tag team arena teams, or perhaps come up with better level 20 dungeon builds. All right, so I want to know which of these rare champions you guys are using in 2020. Let me know in the comments below. Guys, thank you so much for watching today, and as always, I will catch you later.